pleasure to introduce to you, have Roger Main come back. He's originally from Illinois and was at Iowa State for a number of years, and then he saw the light and came to graduate school with our swine nutrition group for several years. And many of you know the impact he had on weaning age and the great work he did there. And then by a twist of fate, Roger went back into production systems and was doing a great job. And by a twist of fate, I remember asking Roger if he'd ever end up at a university, and he said, no, I don't think that's really what I want to do. And now he works at Iowa State, leads their diagnostic lab, excellent diagnostic lab. He was one of the critical leaders helping figure out PED. He's one of the people that moved and shaked and pushed and prodded and got resources and really set a new standard. In PD, our diagnostic labs used to be more competing, and they still compete, of course, but that was when we set the standard of cooperation. Yep. Am I right in that, Roger? So Roger's done an excellent job reaching out, and I know he works every day to help our industry, and we're really proud to have him as a graduate and have him doing what he's doing. So I'm going to turn it over to him and let him share some of his thoughts.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and speak to this group. When Mike had called me and set this up, I said, well, to me, it's like coming back here is a little bit like homecoming day for me, right? And with the swine team was all on my committee, and then Joel and Jason were students at that time. And so we were peers together going through the program, and great friends and colleagues all the way around, and the friends that I've gotten to know here at the diagnostic lab over the years since I kind of got into that world. And I got Jordan up there. He's kind of what I call next gen. They got just such a great group of students, and it's so impressive, this team of graduate students in the program that you all have here, and for the producers in the room and so on. It's not common. It's extraordinary, and so really proud to be a part of that, and so on going forward. So my topic today was emerging diseases and how our VDL is adapting to help producers. And so what I thought I would do is just kind of share, what are we doing locally, kind of within our own circle of influence, and trying to do the best we can to get better, and go with that. And so what I'm going to do is just share a little bit about the lab that I have the great opportunity to work at, just because I think that helps share some perspective, okay? And then what actions we're doing within our own, what we call circle of influence, things that we can control. And then maybe just a few closing comments about FAD preparedness. So we're a fairly large group of really good people that I have the opportunity to go to work with every day. We process a little over 90,000 cases, something like that, about 1.5 million tests. And what we try to do and try to be is one of the preeminent food animal veterinary diagnostic labs. I think one of the gentlemen earlier here said, you can't be all things to all people. And really our focus is food animal and food animal agriculture. And hopefully in all three areas of while our core is service, is try to help train the next generation of diagnosticians and hopefully do some applied research that makes a difference. And so this is kind of what our world looks like every day, running things through the process. We're a fully accredited, full service, meaning we have all the different ologies at the laboratory, and try to put that into work. And this is kind of our model. Get the stuff in. Our primary clients are the practicing veterinarians, working for clinics, production systems, biofarm, and so on. And really we get two types of cases. We get I think the kind of cases that people would conventionally think about of, sick animals, what's going on here type of thing. We call those our necropsy in a box type cases, and those come in with some sort of history, and generally what we'll end up doing is the diagnostician assesses the case, assesses the history, parses out the pieces and parts to the different ancillary labs, pulls that together, and reports that out to the client. The other type of case is what we call test and report, where the clients have specific requests about specific things that they want tested and so on. And that's really what I would consider more the preventive medicine type of applications that are being done in veterinary medicine. And that, by and large, has been the largest growing part of the lab. Is I think the general public would be just amazed of the amount of preventive medicine that's taking place day in, day out in food animal agriculture. Actually, the preventive medicine cases are like 88% of all the cases, right? And that's really been the part that's grown in recent years. It's a great story for food animal agriculture. And then we use this flow of cases to help inform our teaching and applied research programs. We're a group that's grown quite a bit in recent years and so on, and this kind of represents the distribution of our caseload. Lots of pigs, you know, we're in Iowa and so on. That's kind of what we're known for. And then the other part is a bovine and avian. On case tests and so on, it's more like 75, 10 and 10 bovine avian, because avian cases and pig cases are a little bit bigger. But again, and overall, 95% of all the services are food animal related. This just shows the distribution of where the cases come from. About half of them come from Iowa and about half from everywhere else. Kind of the novelty, or kind of what's unique about us to some degree is pigs. We do a lot of that. And the other thing that's probably somewhat novel, and we got Steve here in the room, a lot of this is an outcome of his work, but we've really remained committed to be a full service lab, meaning retaining analytical, what we call analytical services, toxicology, nutrition, and pharmacology type testing. And it's actually been an area that's grown quite a bit here in recent years as well. And we do all that, like all labs, is to say our primary client and who we're serving is the veterinarian, who in turn is working with the producer, and our focus is on animal health, and then have really strategic alliances. And I think that was mentioned earlier, in that we live and breathe on that, on client feedback. They make us better, and that's what we're here to do and serve. So what are we doing in our world? The first thing I think to understand what are we doing is what do our stakeholders expect? Okay, they expect basic things, right? Competent personnel, capable infrastructure. They want quality results they can trust. They want them fast. They want it cost effective, electronically distributed, and so on. And really to be an extended partner. The reason I went to the lab, I sure wouldn't have ever thought I would have, but wasn't something I really sought out at all, but I always had a tremendous respect for the role that the lab played in practice, as really an unbiased extension of the practice, that working for the practice and the production systems. And so we really see ourselves as just an extension of our clients' businesses to some degree. So that's kind of the core of it. So they expect basic things, and it's also to understand that how do we fit in their world? How do what we're doing every day fits in our clients' worlds, right? And so I think it's important to understand, what's really working, okay? And since this is a pig meeting, we're talking about swine medicine and pig production and so on. And what's really working in pig medicine is the ability there's been just tremendous strides made in the ability to control and or eliminate diseases from individual farm sites or individual sets of related farm sites. It's working very well. And the labs play a significant role of helping support that in some of this, what we would consider preventive medicine, antemortem diagnostic testing applications. And we also have to understand what's a bit of a challenge for our clients, right? And our industries that we're serving. And what that is really in the area of swine health is our ability to control or contain diseases at a higher level at an area, region, state, or country. Okay, and also the changing landscape of the industry. This is a graph that's no surprise to anyone, right? We have about 27% now of the pork being exported, 30% of the value. That's a big change as it relates to, and animal health plays a significant role in that, primarily from a risk standpoint, okay? And we also try to learn from our real world experiences, okay? So Iowa and Minnesota, we're really in the kind of the center of the AI thing here in 2015. We learned a lot from that, and what worked and what didn't work from at least our role in that. And really one of the core things that as we were going through that, we had good personnel, infrastructure, good tests, ability to get it turned around and so on. But one of the big challenges was the quality of the information in the record. And that's really important, especially when you get into any sort of program disease response, this discussion earlier about secure pork and so on, is that these are professional veterinary medical records, and we need clear, concise traceability, really from stem to stern. So how do we make that better, and making the resulting record really fit for the digital era, okay? And so one of the things we got out of that was, this whole issue of paper-based submissions and so on, it just doesn't work if you want to have back-end information to be utilize IT systems, okay? And so this is just like on average, we do about 350 cases a day. You're starting to transcribe this information. What's letters, what's numbers? Nobody knows. Doesn't work, okay? And so, and the other thing, take-home message we learned through that is, we participate in a lot of drills and things like that, exercises, and I think what we learned from that is, real life, it's not like that at all, okay? It's really what you do is your systems you revert to is really what you do every day, okay? Because that's what works. And so when we get into this talk about, okay, preparedness, this, that, and the other, I think kind of our takeaway from the high-path AI thing, and to some degree PDV was quite a bit different because we really didn't contain it, so to speak, right? But it's really the systems and practices that you do every day. That's what matters. And so as we go through this talk, you'll talk a little bit about that, or quite a bit about that. It comes back to, that's really what our focus has been, is just how do we try to continually improve what we do each day and our service to our clients, and ultimately, I think for the lab's role in any sort of preparedness is what we're doing every day, okay, in the supporting of the practicing veterinarians and the producers they're working for. So within our circle of influence, part of the deal as far as new tools, new applications, and so on, like the gentleman at the lab named Jeff Zimmerman came up with this a few years back, and has really been quite extraordinary. And it's really played a significant role in changing the landscape of applied swine medicine. How are the health of swine monitored in this country? And kind of some things, it's like, it's always better to be sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, but you get into something and you're like, hey, well, it worked for this and now it works for that. And when we got into PDV, I don't think anybody was thinking that this thing's going to work for enteric disease. It's like, oh, it works for that too, right? So we got systemic and enteric disease has been broadly applied for those types of diseases, and it's a little more hit and miss on respiratory depending on the type of bug, okay, and how that bug is shed into the environment. And historically, it's been on group-housed animals, replacement stock sows, growing pigs, and so on. And then more recently, we have one of our production medicine faculty and their students now, they're finding this to work with Jeff as far as this, what they call these family oral fluid samples for use at weaning. And it's really fascinating, like a behavioral thing. Like you hang that rope in the back of the crate, oh man, it's a mixed bag, not gonna happen. Mama, she sucks on that rope, you're good to go, right? And the rest of them get right on it. And so that's a new tool that's being now used a bit more for assessing PRR status at weaning. Another thing that's been really significant, just more recently, within the last about 18 months, has been this processing fluid. Again, this is typical like pig farmer logic. It's like, I'm here, what do I have? These are my tools. It's like a MacGyver thing, right? What do I have in front of me? What can I use? And so this has been something, this processing fluid, so it's basically as the pigs are being castrated and their tails are being docked, they put up some plastic in the bucket, put cheesecloth over that, put it in the sack, drain it out, and there's your what they call a processing fluid sample. And that's really shown to be that these population samples are just so much more sensitive than our typical individual bleeding where you're going out and sampling individual animals. And hopefully that's making a difference. And again, it's really been taken off. It's very recent that it's been adopted, but is taken off for people that want to know at birth, am I having shedding at birth or not? And so that's how it's being applied. So that's good. Another thing is, it's like what I put it here. These are kind of, I don't know if I call them specialty services, but to some degree. But I put this in here mainly to say is that, the deal about continuous improvement and continuing to evolve and improve to meet stakeholder needs, because our clients' needs change, and we get great feedback when stuff doesn't go right. It's like, hey, this happened. Okay, what do we need to do to change our processes? And we had a situation this last year where we had some PRRS sequencing You know, that's been growing as more and more people are eliminating field virus from their populations, but they want to keep them vaccinated to keep them some level of protection. Okay, so when you get a PCR positive, well, then you got to sequence it to say, well, is that vaccine virus or is it field virus? And so today, the only core way to do that is to sequence it. And so we've ramped that up now, and that's done 5 days a week. Like when I started the lab, it seemed like that was like a 3-week deal. It's like, God, can't that get better? And so now it's like basically a next day, you know, overnight process, next day type thing. And the process is continuing to evolve because we had some instances this spring where we got feedback from a client where we had some errors in the results that just weren't right, and we'd had a new person take over that job, and it's like, and in the end, what it caused us to do is to say, you take a look to say, how do you learn from that and make your systems better, make them better. And so we did some significant things about just really simplifying, isolating the procedure, simplifying the procedure to make it more repeatable and more robust. And so I put this in here as a way of, this is an example of how we're, you know, continue to evolve and improve of what we're trying to do to meet client and stakeholder needs. Similar kind of thing, this just happened just this fall. There's more and more growth and success being made, which is so exciting to see with the elimination of MHIO from these breeding herds and so on. And so we've long had this service that we call HATS, Health Assurance Testing Services, and it's basically for expected negative herds. You know, it started with PRRS, and then when PDB came along, we added that, and then just recently we added the MHIO, and that's so if we get a positive result, we can notify the client right away, to initiate test, retest right away, this kind of thing, and has been very well received by our clients overall. But again, to me, that's just another specialty services as where we're trying to adapt to meet changing client needs. Okay, investing a lot of it, you know, in infrastructure from an equipment standpoint. We got molecular stuff like 3 ways to sideways. I think sometimes we get more information we know what to do with at times. But a lot of that, the same thing with alternative antibody-based testing technologies continue to come forward. This MALDI thing for bacterial diagnosis has been really just totally transformed bacterial identification to a mass spec thing. It's just been tremendous. Continued and improved technologies for histopath diagnosis and so on with IHCs, and then these what they call in situ now in fish. Those are more like PCR type things for histopath-based diagnosis. A lot of this, Steve loves this stuff, oh my God, is maintaining this fully capable and analytical lab, and so we have a suite of that. And again, we think it's really important to maintain all that so we can be a full service lab, okay? Because there's very few labs in the country that are being able to maintain this sort of capability. And, but when somebody's got a question or a problem and it's not an infectious disease thing, you know, you got to have a means to deal with it. And so we've chosen to invest significantly in that, so LCMS for drugs, toxins, and so on, minerals, heavy metals, toxins, pesticides, OPs, vitamins, and that's been significant. Another thing from an infrastructure standpoint, again, do you have a capable infrastructure? We're on a similar boat as Hands here in Kansas State. We have a fairly old lab, was built in the mid-70s. Lots changed since then. And so we put forward together this proposal. It's been something that's been kind of working on for the past several years. Actually started in 2012. It's kind of finally coming to fruition. And one of the big things was we had a study done with stakeholder feedback and so on about saying, well, is there a return on that, right? So if you're asking for state money for something like that to invest in, is there a return to the state or not? And so this was really significant in helping this project start to move forward. So we got some initial investment from support to move forward with this project from the spring legislative session of this year. And so the project in total is a $124 million project. It was like a $106 million standalone building. What got approved was 75 to date, and so we're now in the planning process of taking that first step, kind of a phase 1 type of thing. Another area where we've invested a lot is in IT to make us better, and to make the quality of the results better, to make the results more valuable, more meaningful, more timely, and so on, and really to enhance the traceability and the scalability of what we're trying to do every day. And so one of the big things going back to the whole AI things, this, that, and the other, has been how do we get away from paper and get more to electronic stuff. with really the whole intention is how do we improve the quality of the record and its fitness for the digital area, because we have more and more people, they want to do more with their data, right? And one thing you find is if you're dealing with stuff that's handwritten going in, you just can't get the consistency. So we've put a lot of investment into an electronic submission tool that's you can do about everything you want to do with it. Make new ones, create new ones from old ones, create templates, save pending. Each client, this is the key part here, is that each client has their own library of owners and sites, and that's really the foundation. And that way, so every time they pick an owner in a farm, it's all based on pick list. Okay, so they have all the correct information associated with those premises in their own database. Okay, and then it just pulls it right in, right? So nobody has to write anything down. That's been key. And the other thing that's interesting, this is kind of evolves, continues to evolve, is that they're editable up until the time we get them. So a lot of times things are being submitted from the farms and all this, and they're being mailed overnight, and they can edit them up until the time that we scan them in, right? And they use that a lot, believe it or not, right? So that's good. So again, real simple. They can print them out if they want to. They can just write the web ID number on, and the key thing there is then we can pull it in. And we've seen really, which I think just speaks volumes for the progressiveness of the swine practitioners and the U.S. swine industry in general. Seen, shared this with other industries and so on. They just can't believe the rate of adaptation. So it's really been a great adaptation by the client base. We're up to about 75%-ish now, and we hope to be by 90% by the start of 2020. And I think it's definitely reasonable. And we also came out with a mobile-friendly version of that. Our client portal here just this past year. Again, everybody's on their phones all the time. I'm not sure what they're staring at sometimes, but it seems like it's the thing to do. So how do we make people are always on the go. How do you make the stuff more user-friendly for the client? Again, so it's a user-friendly version of our client portal for results as well as submissions and so on. And so we hope that continues to help enhance the value of our results and service. The other thing that's kind of somewhat unique is this is something we just got into this past year, is how do we continue to work with our clients and help in, and ultimately is we're trying to improve the quality of what we're doing, the efficiency of what we're doing, the scalability of the diagnostic process, and really I think the big thing is to say how do we improve the standard of food animal practice. Okay, we play some role in that, and so how can we help continue to provide some leadership and support to our clients to help move some things forward. So we said, well, let's try to incent, so there's some incentive there to do that. Okay, because sometimes it's easy to do things not well, right? And it's just a little bit of an effort to do things well, okay? And so we're saying, is there some value in that? And so it's like if they submit them electronically, they send them in with the premise ID number, and they come with a history. They have the tissues that actually can be used to answer their question, right? And they're in some reasonable condition. You get the web credit plus 10% off of the testing. That's good, right? So there's something a little bit in it for them. And same kind of a thing for if there are these antemortem samples. Same kind of a thing that if they're they're electronically submitted and they come with a PIN. They got numbers on them that are in order, some kind of reasonable container and containment. If there's some serology, have some sort of processing, again, same kind of thing, okay? And all that's, it's on just, we've been at about a year-ish, a little more, that it's about $30 a case, right? So there's something there to say, is that an effort to say, try to make it better for all parties involved. And the web thing has gone really, really well, and this has been mixed to date, and it's largely been because of it's like a learning thing, right? And it's a client education thing, and we're trying to say we're going to try to work to educate people better, but on average it's about, so this is the incentive, per month of what's on the table, and then what's being captured or being captured by the clients and so on. And what we see is we have like the topper end of our larger clients are at about 80%. Of our mid-sized clients are about 85%, and then others, aren't capturing that much. So one of the things that we're going to start to do here in 19 going forward, and we have had some clients asking for this, is to provide feedback, right? So provide feedback to the clients So they can use that in their place of business to say, oh, I see, and as an education tool for the people they work with. And so we think that's going to really make a difference. And like one of the things is, like the biggest thing is, it's like sometimes it's the simple things that are hard, right? Well, what do you mean by sample ID in order? I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. You know? so it's things like that. And so it's a good way to help between the clients and the labs, making sure that we understand what we want that works good for the client and good for us, and we can make it an efficient process. And so providing some more client education things that we go back and forth, and we learn from each other, I can tell you that. And the other thing is about we can make things better. Another thing with the web thing, I tell you the web thing, that's so cool about that is it's like dynamic, and it's like, I mean, it's almost every other week there's something, what about this, or what about that, or can you do this? You know what I mean? So you have a platform that you continue to make it, improve it, and when you make it better, it's like, boom, it's better. And it's implemented across the board, right? So it's sustainable project, or progress, and so on going forward. Similar IT thing, just came out with this not too long ago, was this easy ship thing, we call it, where the clients, they go online, they print off these labels, and you don't pay anything for the labels, so you can print off and distribute them how you want to, you know, and then just slap them on the case when you go to ship it, and then we put a flat rate fee on the case when it comes in. We just distributed across all the cases that are in that box, okay? And so that's been good. The savings have been, you know, are somewhat significant again, so there's some incentive to do that. It's about $50 a case on the air packages, about $10 for the ground. And so we just started this, and we've gotten some pretty good uptake right away. And I think as this gets out and we get people educated about that, because it's good for the clients because it makes the whole shipping thing easier. It's like, I don't have to weigh this thing, and how do I do it? And you know, I got to go to a store, and where do I drop it off? It makes it easier that way. And on the lab side too, is it helps because ultimately, our goal would be is to essentially get everybody on this, okay? And then we know how many boxes are coming in each day, right? So you kind of have some forecasting coming in, and then we check it out, say what are they? Is it in order? Is it good? Did they do easy ship or not? Boom, okay? So again, our objectives in all of this are to say, how do we enhance just the continual improvement of what we do every day? That's all it is. And hopefully play some role in improving the standard of practice. And and there's enough in it there, I think, to help move people along. It's like $35 to $50 a case that, you know, savings can be passed on. Okay? And you say, well, why does that even matter? You know, does it matter? Well, it does matter. And because it makes the whole thing, the whole process from beginning to end, just a much more high quality system. And it's very scalable, and just the quality. And as it relates to emergency disease preparedness, the traceability is really, really a big thing. And you know, you get a lot of boxes, and if you get the stuff organized when it comes in, it just, you know, straight through. And but if it's not, it's like each one's a puzzle. Okay. The other thing we've been investing a lot from continual improvement about the quality of our results and so on is we've invested a lot in instrumentation from robotics, what we call liquid handlers. And it's been a learning process, a learning curve. Hasn't been all good, but it's getting a lot better, okay? We started back in 2014 with 3, and now we got a fleet of 8 of these things. And it's really all about, again, how are we continually to improve the quality of what we're doing, scalability, traceability, and employee retention and health, okay? And so just in 2018, is about mid-year, we were able to get all of our high throughput testing transferred over to these liquid handlers, okay? That's been a significant endeavor. We have a MEMS application that's for extraction, so where they're electronically building the plate maps. We have a MARS application that's basically builds the PCR plate maps from the extraction plates and parses the results into the limbs. And then all the plates are now barcoded, okay? And that's really been a key thing for the extraction plates and the PCR plates. And so what all the barcoding and the two built for purpose software applications do is make so all these things can talk to each other, okay? And again, all about enhancing the quality of the results. So it's kind of like this, is we still have to do the pooling by hand, okay? So we do that upfront pooling and organization of the samples by hand, but then we use this MEMS, which is a built for purpose software thing that electronically builds the plate maps. We transfer them into the rack that's used on the instrument, okay? And then we use the liquid handlers to move them from the tubes they're in into the 96-well plate formats, you know, extraction in 96-well plate format. And then we use the liquid handler we use Mars to build the PCR plate map, and then we use liquid handlers to transfer the extracts from the extract plates to one of any number of PCR plates. Those are uploaded into the instrument for PCR. Mars parses it out, does the QA check on the curves and so on, and then it's on your case report. Okay, so but sounds easy, but it's really, but I think from a QA long-term sustainability standpoint, it's turned it into a big thing. And this is kind of what it looks like. Okay, is that now we can use everything as barcoded, right? And so what you do is when they're getting ready to load the PCR plate, Mars already knows who that is, so they scan the barcode on the PCR plate and it says, I know who you are, and I know what extract plates I need to get on the deck, and then they just scan the extract plates on the deck. They go boop, 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 right? So I know who they are, where they are, and then it knows to go, oh, okay, so which wells do I need to get out of to put into here, okay? So again, just to share that as an example of investment in IT to help make us better. Options for accessing results, that's really important, and our clients, again, they're always on the move. Nobody's sitting at their home at their computer. They want it on their phone, and they want to get timely updates, right? And so we've got a multitude of ways that people get their results. The long-standing portal where you can log in and so on, that's a 24/7 thing. They've got this thing we call daily summary report, so it's one email per day. You get a mobile-friendly summary of all your open and active cases. You can get them one by one if you want them that way. If you want them sent to a third-party database application, we can do that too. That's good. That's been a growing interest by our larger clients especially because they want to bring the data into their own system and do their own analysis and summary and aggregation and so on, or the old-fashioned US mail still exists. So this is what the daily summary looks like. Again, just a mobile-friendly summary, and it says this is who they are, how many were positive, how many were negative, and so people can go through on their phone very quickly. Oh, sorry.
Are you going to have to grow your capacity based upon where you're currently at?
Now, I'd say no. There's testing capacity is very large. It's extraordinary. Is on the back end. The hard part is the front end. Okay. So and that's any lab that you talk to when they talk about, oh, we had this disease outbreak, this is how did you respond, this, that, and the other. It's uniformly is that the problem that with testing capacity, it's on the front end. So it's that receiving and accessioning and so on, and how that goes. And so that's been a key driver of why we've been investing in these kind of front end technologies and incentives to how they're submitted. Because if they're submitted well, you know, tubes are numbered, submitted electronically, it just makes everything go. But on the back end, for testing capacity, there's lots of testing capacity. Great question. Any other questions? I like questions. I don't really like to present. No, that's great. Anyway, so yeah, so again, just examples of ways to how we continue to try to do what we can to make our stuff more valuable to our client. And so yeah, so they get this. It has a hyperlink. They can view the case report. If they want to forward it to somebody, their friends, they can do that all from within their own phone. You know, very straightforward. And then they have preferences by clinic, by vet. If they don't want to get everybody's, they just want their own, or they want one email a day for the clinic and one just of their own, no problem. That they can manage those kinds of things. And the other thing we've invested in is talented young people for client services. We think that's really important, especially when you're going through to helping support your clients' needs and getting them transitioned to new tools, okay? Because everybody's production system and clinic is a bit different, and so how they want their things set up is a bit different. And so that's why we have some talented young women here that help them do that. Another thing that Steve was talking about earlier before is we've been working closely with our peer VDLs on this, what we call, it's kind of an IT or it's infrastructure development project. And what it's really all about is to say, how do we standardize our information? Okay, how do we standardize the information? So it doesn't matter what lab it comes from, it can be readily aggregated through electronic applications and put into any built-for-purpose database application and used by the end user. So it's really on how do we standardize these electronic packages of results. And you know, we were talking with Steve Henry earlier today at lunch. We were talking, this is Eisenhower country, right? Huh? Big deal. That guy had an impact on this world, right? And so, and one of his big things was the interstate, right? Getting that program going. And so this is really this data standardization project that we did collaborative with our peer labs, Kansas State, Minnesota, South Dakota. Was funded by SCHC and the USDA. What it's all about is to say, how do we have our information so we can use these standardized codes to really enhance the usability of that, make it fit for the digital era. And it's kind of like one of those things, when we first started having computer limb systems, if we would have done it then, it'd be no problem. But nobody did it then. So everybody's thing is a little bit different, right? And so what it's doing is it's making it so it's going to make those things compatible. And this is what the system looks like from a USDA or national level. So this is what our, quote, national program looks like. We got VDLs, people submitting all over the place. We send them to a common database. This would be like for reportable program disease type stuff. They call it the lab messaging services. It's all built on using these common languages so it can get in there again. But to make this thing work, you got to have the data standardized going into it. And we're building currently, and this is another SCHC funded thing that we're working in collaboration with our peer labs, Minnesota, South Dakota, and Kansas State on, and we're kind of doing the software development side of it, is building an application that we would then share for people to use how they want to. But the same kind of thing is that you can receive the data from any number of labs, tag it accordingly, put it into a data warehouse, and then tie it to any one of these BI tools or business intelligence tools so you can aggregate, summarize, answer your own questions. Because a lot of today's day with all this health data and questions on trends and so on is you have to know the tests to be able to know what you're trying to get out. So the idea of this is to try to get it in kind of where a layperson can do it themselves by just by drop-down menus and so on. And so we could get this kind of data aggregated. This is just something from the SCHC where we're doing this as kind of a proof of concept with this data warehouse project as far as trends at a national level. We're working on something locally, more of an EPI tool for people that have interest in monitoring the health status of their farms over time. It's something we've been working with BI and the UC Davis group on, but there's going to be any number of these type of things that come available, but the core to make any of that stuff work is you got to have the data standardized. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Another thing we're doing, not necessarily directly related to the lab, but somewhat, is there's a group of us at the colleges, we're doing this study on the, it's entitled, this is another SCHC-funded project, it's called, Is It Time for an NPIP-like Program for the U.S. Swine Industry? And NPIP, a lot of times when you first talk about that with our pork colleagues, they say NPIP, they say, what are you talking about? What is that, right? And so, but NPIP has been it's been a program, it's really an industry state, federal program, industry-led for sure, that dates back to the 1930s, okay? And it's been a long-standing thing that's really governed the health of poultry in the U.S., and it's something that's very broadly recognized nationally and internationally. Creates common definitions and standards to receive official certifications of plants, premises, flocks, and states. There's a Congress of Industry representative that meets every 2 years, and they make updates to the plan and so on. But it's been a key thing, and I'll get to this in a minute, is that historically it was all about the breeders, okay? Because its focus has always been on the control of vertically transmitted diseases that transmit from the hen through the egg to the chick. And that's what it was up until about the mid-2000s. And in the mid-2000s, they brought the commercial guys into it, okay? And the reason that is because they had a high-path AI outbreak. It was like, I think it was in Pennsylvania or Virginia, it was out east a bit. But it cut off their exports for the country. And then that's what really drove, because they had, the poultry industry has a lot of faith and trust in this program. It's broadly recognized, internationally recognized. And they say, well, we got to get this AI thing so we can control our own destiny to some degree. And so they brought the plants into it. And so how it works is who owns the certificates is for the AI monitored status is the plants, okay? And then it's all a voluntary thing, but it's like a lot of these things that how they work is they're all voluntary, so you don't have to be in it. But if you want to be in it, the definitions are in code. Okay, and the being in code is what brings legitimacy, that it's recognized by trading partners. Okay, So you know what this certificate means, basically. So we're just doing this study to say, is there anything we can learn from that? I was telling somebody earlier, I was talking with Tim earlier today, is that, you know, I can say when I got into this, I said I knew one thing, is that I knew I didn't know much about NPIP going into it, but after getting into it and doing the study and attending their meeting and so on, I can tell you what, I knew absolutely nothing about it, and I can tell you this has been very impressive. I mean, it's a very well organized. That the whole thing is it's a machine. They're a well organized machine about how they do that. And so this was just an example of the Congress that we attended. And what the deal is, but it's kind of an interesting. I like sharing this picture because it's kind of interesting because it's a good depiction of what is NPIP. Okay, so what these people are doing. So these different tables are people from across the U.S. Right. So each state has its own table, right? And see how what they're doing is they're voting, okay? And they have these different colored cards, because so each state has the opportunity to have representatives of different sectors of the poultry industry, but you can only vote on what pertains to you, right? So if it doesn't pertain to you, you don't vote, right? And so they review, and basically what they're voting on is amendments to their existing program, right? And the other interesting part is that these people here say, who are these people? Well, this guy here is the head of the USDA Vet Services. This guy here is over the poultry, pork, and aquatic programs. And this guy here is the indemnity guy, okay? And the deal is, it's so they don't vote, right? But they're listening, right? And they're there to answer questions, but they're a part of the discussion. Does that make sense? Or they're hearing, well, what are all these people saying, and why are they driving this, and why are they doing it? And so what they do is they vote on proposals. Then if they pass, then they get updated into the program, and then they go in the code. So anyway, so kind of what we're doing that is this summer, fall is forming and investigating, and we're going to summarize and pull this thing together in the spring. We're going to be bringing a group of pork industry stakeholders together in early 2019 as we're kind of working on the final report to kind of run it by people and get everybody's input and say, what do you guys think about this or that and the other? And hopefully, again, it's just to be an objective report for factual-based report for pork industry stakeholder reference and consideration. A little bit about ASF, quick. You know, there's been some real good things going on that Megan talked about, or about ASF this morning, is that there's really no surveillance program today. The one thing we've learned about ASF, and for sure CSF exists for a long time, is that some of this ASF and CSF in the early stages, for sure, it looks like any other disease we have. You can't really tell it apart. And so we're looking to say, is there an opportunity for some sort of sick pig type surveillance, and basically with pork board support and pushing ASV and SHIC and all that, is we got the USDA is going to expand the sample types that are approved to include spleen, so that's a big win, something we actually get and can use, so that's a plus. And the other thing I think that goes back to this is that, so that's happening, but then the second line here is, I think it's clear that the whole FAD surveillance, it's in desperate need of a modernization act. You know, and when I say act, I mean it's really a producer. It's going to be a producer thing. It's not a USDA thing. The USDA may help. They'll help implement, but they're not going to lead it, because this whole FAD thing, I can tell you this, is that as it relates to the pork industry, it's a pork industry issue. It's not a poultry issue, it's not a USDA issue, it's not a beef issue, it's a pork industry issue. And the poultry guys are good. Their deal on this is very good. Okay, meaning they got systems in place, it's very structured, it's very clean, clear, and I think that the pork deal is we have to modernize to meet the industry's demands and needs of today in this export thing. And how we protect that, and we can be prepared for that and deal with it. And in the end, I think the only thing that we can do locally, again, that we're trying to do within our own little world, is just trying to get better at what we do every day with our clients. And if we can help through that way, that's a win. Okay? So with that, I'll take your questions. Appreciate the opportunity. Somebody's got to have a question.
The surveillance, Roger, for some of these FADs, what I've been told is that the false positives are always the concern. But where can we go on for ASF for some of these terms for that history?
Yeah, I think the question was, what about false positives? And that's always been, I would say, the excuse or the reason, but holds no water. Again, poultry does it every day, right? That's just part of the deal. And you have a screening test and a secondary test, and you got to have something confirmed three times before it would be ever. So I don't think it's a
We
data.
monitor CSF now.
So that's why it would be, you say, producer-driven rather than a regulatory driven.
For sure, about what the program is, and because I think we're fortunate in this country. There's a great group of colleagues across USDA, across our state departments of agriculture, and so on. But their role is administering programs. It's the industry's role to define what they are, right? And on some of this is, I think, one of the things is that, especially with this FAD surveillance stuff, is we aren't going to be in a position where we should just be waiting, well, what can we do, I think it's going to take an industry-led effort to say, how do we really modernize this of going about how we're doing, and maybe not get as caught up in who's paying for what, for everything, because sometimes I think that holds back some common sense, of how we move some of these forwards. And there's opportunities to do this, I think, in a very efficient way. But we're going to need more flexibility than we've been given.
All right. Thank
Great.
you, everyone. Really appreciate. Thank you, Roger,
Thanks.
for your time here. We really appreciate everybody coming to K-State. Hopefully, we brought you a good program again this year. You got to highlight some of our things on the program.
Yeah, let's give Roger one last round of applause.